pleasure to talk to Pierre Biver. At the time of this recording, he's hard at work, and that's an understatement, on the launch of the much anticipated Biver watch brand. We talk about his journey to date, his views on the state of the industry, the good and the bad, the creativity in the industry, and of course the launch of the brand. Please enjoy this refreshingly candid conversation with Pierre Biver. What's on your wrist today?
So today I'm wearing a recently acquired watch, the Patek Philippe 5960 annual calendar chronograph in steel with a steel bracelet. It was for a long time a watch that I didn't necessarily like for aesthetical reasons, for many reasons in fact. And once I got it on my wrist, I just can't take it off anymore. It's become my favorite watch, and there's this really pleasant factor of having found something that initially I thought was not for me, and now I'm in love.
Very
I got
recently?
it 2 months ago.
Oh, okay. So it's still in the honeymoon phase.
Exactly, but it's starting to last. I think I might have found the one.
No, you're too young for that. It's not possible. Then we have to stop.
Only time will tell.
Exactly. Pierre, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and also your journey so far in the watch world?
I grew up in Switzerland in a household which is very fond of watches, as well most people can imagine. I grew up here in Lausanne around the Lac Léman, the Geneva area. It was a nice childhood, nice teenage. I was very privileged. I grew up with brothers and sisters, so we had, it was really a very, very nice upbringing. And then when I finished school, I started university. It wasn't really my thing. I wanted something more practical. And this is where my journey, let's say professional journey in the watch industry started, when I left university to go to London and work for Philips in the watch department there.
Was this out of passion, let's say, or duty? Because
so it was out of passion, because where my passion for watchmaking started is through my father's collection. I mean, obviously, since a very young age, I've been used to client dinners, to suppliers coming over or events, Basel World, etc. I'm born actually during the week. Every year, Basel World was during my birthday, so I spent quite a few events there. But it was really the vintage watches. See his old Pateks, see his old watches. I thought they really had some kind of emotion to them. The fact that he collected them also, it gave something particular feeling for these watches. So there was passion involved, at least for what direction I wanted to start my career. So that's why I headed towards the, let's say, vintage / collectible part of the industry, which, by the way, back then was a very small percentage of the whole watch market. I think it represented, if I'm not mistaken, something around 10% of market shares of that market back then, and today, only 3 years later, it's nearly 20%, or even it passed 20%. So it's a market that grew a lot.
Now, vintage, right, in the past, and actually not too distant past, excluding the real special pieces, it was kind of an affordable entry in the watch hobby. But this has changed. How do you see this evolving? Because you've seen it now really ramping up, I think, the time spent also at Philips and before. How do you see this evolving, and do you think that's actually a good thing for the industry?
Well, unfortunately I don't have a crystal ball, so good thing or not, today I think it's still very early to say that, because I mean, yes, it's been this kind of, I don't want to say hype, but this inflation in a way has taken years to arrive to the point where it's at today, but it's still fairly young. I think it's an interesting question to reflect on and say, maybe, why is this happening today? And I think you can pick out two, for me at least in my head, the way I feel, there's two big events that can explain what's happening today. The first being in the industry, and I think which is the one which carries the most weight, is the fact that you see Rolex, when they released the Daytona or the Pepsi on Jubilee bracelets, these watches had so much hype, so much demand for it, and unfortunately not, but because of the Rolex the quality standards, the offer isn't there to match. So I think some of that excess demand has shifted towards vintage pieces. And at the same time that was happening, you have one particular sale, which is the sale of Paul Newman's Paul Newman 2017 by Philips, and the price it reached, which was back then the most expensive bracelet watch ever sold. I think that showed very positive signs and encouraging signs to a lot of people to say there's actually something in the world of vintage watches that's happening. And you can see from there the prices, the dynamics. If you pick out both events that happened they were not exactly the same time, but at the same period, it all brings us back to where we are today, which is that people really realized the value of vintage watches in terms of quality, in terms of sometimes rarity, the hunt to go after some particular pieces, Zenith Daytonas, for instance, produced on a approximately 10-year period with huge differences from year to year, from even in the same year, same production range, you can have two different dial, two different serifs. So there's really something very playful about vintage watches that can offer something more that the industry doesn't offer anymore today. Now coming back to your question, which was, do I see it as a good thing or bad thing? I think it's good because it helped the market grow. I think this has led to a lot of things that are happening today. For instance, the rise of the independents, which are finally getting their moment to shine, and rightly so for the work they've done. I mean, talking to the watchmakers, to the independents, they always tell today we're sold out for 3 years. It's amazing. Everybody's praising us, but lots of people forget the days where we couldn't pay rent because we weren't selling anything. So I think altogether, for the moment, I see it as a good thing. But obviously, when things become too big and too overwhelming, obviously it can have a negative impact. Hopefully we don't get there and we can find a way to stabilize that growth.
No, because you touched upon it, but even now modern watches, right, are surprisingly difficult sometimes to get, and not just used to be a few models, the obvious ones from Rolex, for example, but that has now also gone well past or beyond that. Do you not see then an issue with, there's potentially a huge audience that just says, I guess it's not for me then, and moves on to something else, and long term that would have some impact, or no, am I just being difficult?
I think it would definitely have an impact. I couldn't tell you at what stage or at what moment it would have that actual impact. But I do think that today watches, and I don't like to talk about it that way because it's my passion. For me, every watch has an emotion, every watch creates something special. But today we see in a world where there's lots of instability. I don't know if you see that now. There's a lot of insecurity in the world. That we just got out of a global pandemic. Now we have international conflict, which we've not seen before in the past 70 years. And watches keep good value, so they've really become an asset class of their own. People invest in watches, and I think actually that might be the problem rather than people getting discouraged by the waiting time, because the day that the people that invest in watches heavily for their value and as an asset, the day that they back out is the day that the market could, if it's a bubble, that's the moment where it could collapse.
You're in the industry, you're moving deep into the industry. Well, more on that after this one. But do you agree that there is a little bit of a mildness to the creativity in the broader watch industry? So just on a broad level, I'm not talking the MB-Nefs of the world, Recep and so on. I'm talking the
broader industry,
the groups.
I think and I've held that standpoint for a while now, but I clearly think there's a lack of creativity. And I think, can we understand it? Yes and no. The fact is today it's so streamlined what people want, their taste, their whether it be aesthetical or what complications they want. Everything's starting to be very, very one-sided, let's say. And you can see brands, you can understand them. They have one product that is is selling out. Why change it? Why invest? Yes. Why take risks? You can even see some brands that are putting aside some pieces that are not selling that well. So everybody's kind of concentrating on the same. They're taking the same directions. It's very, very one-sided. And I think that's something I feel is a real problem, is the lack of creativity. But at the same time, is it, can we understand it? I think to a certain level we can understand the brands. And also today the world works differently than in the past. In the past, you had to go out and make the best watch to be able to sell it. Today, virtually, Rolex are sold out without even having produced the watch. They're going to have releases in a few weeks with the Watches and Wonder. Who knows what they're going to release? But they're probably sold out already.
Yeah.
There's no effort to be done, but you can see that. You can take, brands are having less creativity, but you can also ask the question: are retailers having less creativity? Because retailers who are on the forefront of this business, that are actually selling the watches, are they putting the same effort? How are they acting today? So on the whole, let's say vertical level, you have in every different category, people are lacking creativity, because today you don't need it anymore.
Yeah, the retailers not taking risks. I'm not a retailer or anything, but I do understand them a little bit. I think they're under massive pressure now from the brands themselves now, opening boutiques, right? You have long-time retailers from brand X. All of a sudden, well, you're no longer needed. We're opening a boutique in Paris, or that's popular for the Belgian market. So they don't even bother with Brussels. It goes directly to Paris. So I guess I don't know how you view that, but I wouldn't want to be a multi-brand retailer necessarily today. Not. That's a risky business. So I would be hedging my bets as well.
Especially if you don't have Patek or Rolex, because that's what draws people in the shops. I was going to say also Audemars Piguet and Richard Mille, but both brands have more or less decided to take the way you were talking about, saying, okay, we want to be boutique exclusive, which is understandable in today's era too. The watch industry has been built on that relationship between multi-brand retailers, the big retailers of this world, Hourglass, Sediki, Yoshida in Japan. That's the way it was built. But today we live in an era where you don't necessarily need it anymore. And so it's understandable for those brands to go their own way. You have more control on your image. You can, your retail staff, you can, teach them, you can really push their knowledge of the brand further, because, they can be dedicated to one brand. So today there's not really a right or wrong answer, I would say, in terms of do we need more creativity? Yes, we do. At the same time, no, we don't. The watch industry is going just perfectly fine at the moment. So why would we want to change? But at the same time, anything that doesn't change ends up by kind of dying and fading out. So we're lucky to have the independence, because, as you mentioned in phrasing the question, there are kind of the little bit of light for the avid watch collectors and enthusiasts.
Now recently, the massive news, at least from my perspective, yours as well, I'm sure, no doubt, massive news. So the Biver watch brand is actually happening. Incredible news. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very much.
So enjoy I was going to say enjoy the peace before the calm before the storm, but it's probably already very busy.
I think we can safely say that we're in the midst of the storm, and we're not even close to the end.
Yes, yeah. So again, I know we can't, you can't talk about a lot of things, but I do have to ask some questions if you don't mind. So I did a little bit of digging. So I saw, brand was registered, correct me if I'm wrong here, but around 2 years ago. So I imagine there was a little bit of an adventure up to date. So is there anything you can tell us about, your journey to date? Because,
So this project with my father, we've been talking about it for a long time. We both share the same passion. We have a very complementary relationship in a way where I bring some things, he brings some things. I mean, I'm talking about this in our private life, and we've always wanted to do something together. For him, I think also personally, even without me, he's also always wanted to do something more family orientated in a way. Really have some kind of legacy, some transmission. Approaching the end of his career, it was something really big for him. And since he retired, I think that was 3 or 4 years ago, he's been having this idea, should I do something, should I not do it? Then there was COVID, there was lots of different situations. We had few projects together, we were interested in buying some brands. We did our homework, we did our due diligences. We kind of tried by any way possible what was the best fit, when was the best fit. And recently, for various different reasons, in particular health reasons concerning him, he kind of said, look, let's do it. We're ready. Let's go. COVID is nearly finished. Let's try and give it a shot. I think looking back on this discussion we're having, definitely one of the key points which I look forward to and which we're really taking a lot of pleasure in doing is the aspect of creativity. So today, we're very fortunate that my father's name has, a following. It has a lot of enthusiasm around it. So we're feeling a lot of, of help from the market, from the suppliers, from the whole industry, really. So we want to take advantage of that to do something really creative, something really, different, unique, and maybe, very particular to us. I also look forward to working with my father. I mean, he's in that relationship. Of course, he'll always be my father, but now we're talking of something more professional. Sometimes, as a son, I take a step back and kind of be like, okay, he's my teacher now. So I'm really learning a lot. Every day is is worth 10 years of university with him.
No doubt, yes.
He's very patient with me. He's super tolerant. He's willing to really transmit his knowledge, his experiences, and at the same time being hard, he expects a lot, and rightly so, because there would be thousands of people queuing to take on the role I'm taking on as his Sherpa. I'm not his Sherpa, and I wouldn't. I'm far less capable than any Sherpa in the world. But I mean, to help him take on this adventure. I mean, thousands of people would want to be in my place. So he's rightfully so expecting certain standards of me, and I appreciate that. It motivates me. It really makes me want to give my all. And at the end of the day, as we were talking before, my name is Biver, Pierre Biver. So. It will be also my name on the dials, my family name. So I also want to give my best. And I think if I may add, looking back on the whole discussion we've had, also this new project, I think today what really excites me the most is that we're living in an era where the watch industry has a lot of spotlight on it from the whole world. That's why it's growing so much, I think. People are really starting to realize the potential of this market, which is amazing. It can be two-sided, because obviously the day that people, if something happens and they look away, well, the market's gonna struggle a bit. But today we're really privileged to have this momentum in this market where people need to go out and try things. They need to bring innovation. They need to stir things up. Not only us, but I think today is a good opportunity that everybody in the watch industry can shine and bring something new. And as being passionate about watches and about watchmaking, I mean, it's the dream come true to be able to express that passion without limits, without saying, but will the market accept this very well, or will it reject it? I mean, today the market is so proactive that you just feel as though let's go crazy. And I think lots of people should do that, even in the big brands. It's now or never. I think the craze around the watch industry at the moment, we should look at it that some people, and rightly so, for instance suppliers, see it as very dangerous. Should we get bigger? Should we not? What if a crisis comes? It can be very difficult, but I think today is really a moment where the watch industry in general should take advantage of that, and in a good way. Not let's say we're discontinuing a watch and then change 3 times the dial, saying they're 3 times limited editions. That's taking advantage of it, but in, I would say, the less Catholic way.
Yeah, lazy, pretty much, right?
Exactly, but
I can
take advantage in the good way. I mean, if people are passionate about watches, they have the luxury of being able to express themselves, to do something new, to do something innovative, that there's a lot of spotlight, that people follow, that people try to understand. I mean, coming back to what we were saying about independence, I remember growing up with the likes of Urwerk or other independent brands, people just didn't understand and didn't necessarily want to go the extra mile to understand what's happening. Today, people are willing to differentiate from the big brands. Lots of collectors and even young people, they're like, it's cool to have a Daytona, but I want something maybe a bit more edgy, maybe something a bit more fun, something we see less. Richard Mille also, for instance, is a good example of that. The way his brand is just exploding.
Exploding, yeah.
So today people are willing to do their research. They're willing to be open-minded. You were talking about Max Busser. What he does is fantastic, and also it's now or never. Let's all go together. All take our weapons and go out and put something out there that's really amazing.
Pierre Biver. So your name carries a lot of weight in the industry. I think. I mean the family name. So there are probably a lot of people out there that have lots of assumptions already about you. Never met you. These assumptions will be good or bad. But that's just life. That's reality. How is that for you? How do you deal with that?
I think I'm very privileged. First of all, let alone the fact that it comes with pressure or else. I'm very proud to be called Biver. My father is my hero. I respect him. He's my idol. I've a lot. I and so many others have a lot to learn from what he's done, his experiences, and his way of seeing things. First and foremost, I think it's important to state that for me, it's a huge pleasure to be able to follow in his footsteps. It's just amazing. I couldn't wish for more. It's my dream, and it's a dream coming true at the moment. Then specifically in terms of the assumptions, sometimes the pressure. I mean, it's just normal. That's life. It's natural that people have assumptions. It's natural that I have some some expectations or some pressure, and I think it's quite something that motivates me. I completely understand. I never feel offended. I never take it personally, because who knows, maybe in 20 years time I'll be put in the same place where I'll be making assumptions or looking on somebody and putting pressure on them. Yeah. So I just feel it's something that motivates me. It motivates me to do my best, to give my everything, and I'm always, everything I try to do, I do it with passion. I do it with being honest, with the values that my father taught me, or my mother actually as well, my parents, and I try to have fun, and that's what keeps me going. And hopefully, maybe in 10 years' time, we'll be able to sit down together, and maybe it won't be an elephant in the room, because I'll have made my own footsteps.
Exactly.
That being said, I wish, and that's the only thing I can wish for in my life. But I never want to. I don't have the pretensions or the. I don't want to chase my father's.
Of course.
Glory, fame, it's all his, and in my heart, I'll never be able to surpass him. He's my guru.
When he watches this, he will be shaking his head. No, you have to aim higher. A big thank you to Pierre for taking the time for this conversation. It was a real pleasure. I hope you got to know him a little bit better through this conversation. Discussing the past and the present should also help us with understanding what we can expect from him and the family brand in the future.